Welcome to the Human to Human podcast, joined today by Mr. Aaron Kaufman. So excited to have you, my friend. Welcome to the show.
I appreciate you having me, and this should be the superhuman to superhuman podcast.
Oh, no, he didn't. The first words out of his mouth, he's already retermed this podcast. I love it. The superhuman podcast.
Absolutely. 100%. How's it going?
Curious why you said that.
Well, I think superhumans have, I think they exist and they have the ability to look outside of, a particular given set of guidelines or a given set of rules or, a given set of boundaries. And I think, I know we'll get into kind of, how we met in our first conversation, but given that and the ability to be able to just, reach into a place that not everyone can reach into, I think those are superhuman qualities that are definitely important. So superhuman is superhuman. I like it.
What percentage of the population do you think fits in the superhuman category?
Well, we get 2 out of 8 billion close to. So I don't know. Nah, you know what? Honestly, I think there's people who bullshit their way through. And they can talk the talk, but don't walk the walk. But how many genuine superhumans? I haven't met a ton of them in my life. And so, I like the authenticity around people, and that's what makes them superhuman. And so what kind of authentic people can you find that really, exemplify things?
I'm going to pull my chain out too, because you've got a nice looking chain on, and I want to join you because this is going to be cool.
Yeah, man, for sure.
I'm so excited to talk to you today. We connected just a couple of weeks ago on LinkedIn. I put a call out for looking to speak with founders and CEOs. And you were like, hey man, we don't know each other, but we kind of know each other because we're connected on this platform that everyone is connected on, but no one's really connected.
For sure.
And let's jump on a call. And we just had, I thought, honestly, you reminded me of a good friend of mine back in Newfoundland. And there was just something about the energy, your no bullshit approach, your willingness to just be transparent and not sugarcoat things was very refreshing in a world where you see everything being so polished. So I really wanted to have you on today. And my first question is, Aaron, what's your story?
Holy shit. This is an hour, right? First of all, I hope you don't mind, but as you might be aware already, I have a real potty mouth. And so I'll try and limit that though, because I know there's kids listening. But
yes, this is the episode where if you have kids listening, now would be the perfect time to lower the volume.
You know what? This is a grown-ups playlist right here.
Yeah.
That's what they say when I'm riding my Peloton bike, right? They remind you, put your headphones in. It's a grown-up playlist. And so
I love it.
What's my story, man? Listen, you know what? I could go on and on, but ultimately I think it's a story of, a guy who, wasn't born to find a ton of success, but, found a way through the years to create success. And I think that, that's really the thing that drives me. It's my passion piece. It's, continue to prove the people who never thought much, why I'm superhuman. And so, I think that, my story starts as a hyperactive kid with, lots of challenges, not things that aren't, things you can overcome, but a lot of things that are more medically treated now, and, things that people consider to be disabilities, I suppose. And, the one God-given gift that I have is a penchant for being smart and having good, strategic skills. And so, I translated poor book skills, and as Gary Vaynerchuk would say, those are completely unnecessary, but translated bad book skills, but good, creative acumen into success. And that continues to drive me. And so through the years, ups and downs, peaks and valleys, I think that, we find a way as humans to continue to grow and persevere, and, have a never say never attitude. And so I know we have a lot of time to chat, and I'm sure you have a ton of questions. So, that's my story in a nutshell. And here I sit, as a proud husband and a proud dad to 3 kids, and a proud and, some would say successful business owner. Although COVID's really fucking with me, but I think that people would look at me who knew me once upon a time, and I know they do because I watch them via social media and stuff, and I see them creeping on my shit, but not necessarily commenting because they don't really know what to say. And I look back at those people, and I'm basically like, the things I always thought I would do, I'm doing, and so. I'm proud of my accomplishments, but I also know that I'm not near done yet. So that's it. That's the short story, the Coles Notes.
What were some of those peaks and valleys? And I'd love to hear, even from like an earlier age, like I'm talking like university, junior high, high school. Last time we connected, I know we really got into some conversation around the younger years.
Yeah.
And just curious to hear about some of those peaks and valleys.
Yeah. Formative years can be tough. But growing up, through the 80s and 90s. So, I'm very transparently, I'm turning 43 in a month. I think that you have a situation back then where things were new and there were a lot of stigmas around things. And so you didn't want to talk too much about deficiencies in life. And, I think from an early age, I remember, the need to try and tone down my energy, and the feeling that, it was my energy and my rambunctious behavior that got me noticed and gained me attention, which is a really bad thing because, clearly you don't want to be, those people tend to be known as the clowns, ultimately, the troublemakers. And, little did I know that, in 1987, right, 1986, late 80s, you don't know, but now what they call you is a kid with ADHD, right? And so going through years, I can almost pinpoint moments where I'm like, how the fuck did nobody know? But I don't know if it was they didn't know, or they just didn't know enough, or they just didn't understand. And so I just got labeled a troubled kid, a shit disturber. And I know that, a lot of listeners and I've talked about this very rarely, but I have talked about this before, and people are blown away by the idea that this is the same story that they relate to, where you're just kind of forgotten. And school systems especially are built for the average kid. They're not built for the super intelligent kid. They're not built for the creative person. They're built for that person who just learns the way that a majority of kids learn. And so if you're in the super smart, the super creative, or you have, different challenges and abilities, school's not made for you. And nowadays they teach you to create your own route, right? So you can learn how to code as a kid. You can learn how to do all sorts of different things, but back then you were just, a little asshole. And so really one of the things that, that kind of created my youth was the idea that people couldn't see the skills that I had necessarily. They just saw the challenges I had and didn't know how to correct them, or didn't want to, put in the effort to do so. And so, through public school and into high school, as you're asking, it became evident that I was more than capable, but they said I was unwilling. And I didn't apply myself. That was the thing that they always said, you're not applying yourself. You're not studying hard enough. And I think that, what a frustrating thing, right? Because it's not that I wouldn't study hard enough. It's that I couldn't study hard enough, right? Going home and putting myself in a room and closing my door and opening a book. It's not that I didn't want to. It's not that I couldn't read or do anything, right? I was well ahead of other kids my age in terms of intelligence. That was never an issue. It was literally painful, right? Almost like mentally painful to be able to have to go through the process of, trying to keep up with other kids when it came to, books and studying. And, I tell people all the time that, math was incredibly difficult because while a lot of people would say now my brain works as a human calculator, I can, numbers are not an issue, but, you would get 5 points, right, for doing something long division. And I have a 9-year-old and she's learning long division right now. And you get 5 kind of check marks, right, for doing the process, right? Well, every time I'd get 1 out of 5 because I knew the answer. It was just so painful to try and go backwards and figure out, like, why do you want me to do all this? I know the answer. And so when the year comes to an end, right, and you end up with like a grade in the 20 percentile, you're going, what do you mean? I knew all the answers, right? And the teacher, then, looks it all up and goes, but you didn't show your work, right? Like, fuck you, my work. I knew the answer. And so really, when that starts to happen and you start to become one of the forgotten, and listen, kids today get forgotten still often, and it's sad. And so, that's the beginning of my story. I became forgotten, and I learned early on to develop thick skin, and that if I was going to do anything with my life, I'd have to find some inspiration along the way, which I did. And, I'd have to find a way, find some meaning and find some purpose. And, thankfully I did all that. And there's, key people in my life who's helped me along the way. But here I am. And, in spite of challenges with education, in spite of the advice given to me in high school, that made it impossible for me to go to university, in spite of all of those challenges, in spite of being forgotten by most everybody, you are the product of your passion, and you're the product of your abilities. And I think, now you find a lot of kids that are being medicated and stuff like that. And, I don't know enough to comment other than certainly it turns off a part of their brain that I think is incredibly valuable. Mm-hmm. And while sometimes I wish, my brain wasn't racing at 2:00 in the morning, more often than not, I'm thankful for not having a disability, but having a unique gift. And I do my best to use it every day.
When you were going through that and going through the unknowns, really, and then being told by all these people who probably didn't know you as well as you know yourself that, hey man, you're not normal, or you're not really fitting in, or how are you coming up with the answers without this? Like, you didn't follow the process. And to your point around how the system was really created for the majority to kind of fit in, and at a young age, you really didn't fit in. You kind of stood out in your own way. Did you have an idea of where your next 5 years, or what it was going to look like? Or when you were thinking about university and then thinking about not going, and then them telling you couldn't, like, what was going through your head during that moment?
Yeah. I didn't know. That's the truth. I didn't know, right? When you're 15 years old and people are saying, we don't want you in these classes, you're disruptive, or you can't do it. You roll with it. And when you're 15 and you find it so hard and people are going, hey, you don't need to do this anymore, you're like, all right, cool. What they don't tell you is that you don't need to do this anymore, but these are the consequences. And I think that people don't necessarily treat young people with the respect that they deserve in terms of understanding the consequences in life. And I think it's incredibly important to be able to say to people, look, like, you may not understand this now, but if this is your choice, these will be the things that are the consequences. And if you're okay with that, here are the other options, right? So you can't go to university, but if you're able to graduate, you can go to college. I just want you to know that. Right? You can't do this, but the sacrifice is that you can do this. We will help you get there. Right? So that wasn't it. It was just like, listen, get out of this because you can't do it. And I had no plan, right? I always just, I think inherently I knew that, or I felt like one day I would figure it out. And I think the thing that I had going for me was, I always looked at these people, teachers and guidance counselors and, all of these people. And I always looked at them, even from a young age. And I thought, I'm smarter than you. I get it. I see the world differently, and that's okay. And I'm learning to adapt to that, but I get it in a way that you don't. And, I don't look, everyone needs math, right? But do I need to know calculus? For me, it was never going to be a question of whether I needed calculus in my life. There was zero chance. So was I concerned about not being able to take calculus? No, not ever.
It's so interesting you say that because calculus was one of those courses that was required for my business degree. And
Sure.
again,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's a business degree. And man, I failed calculus and then I had to do the supplementary exam and I got a 55 on that, which was like which was considered a pass. Even a 50 was a fail.
Mhm.
And I think now, 15 years later, I'm like, when have I ever actually needed
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. And so why, right? I was always someone who would always ask why.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think people should ask why more often, right? Like, not to be disrespectful to anyone, but hey, why do I need that? Or why am I doing that? Or what's the intended purpose behind this? That's another why, right? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
really understand that the person across from you might just say, just because it's a prerequisite. And I
Yeah.
think being honest and saying you'll never use calculus in your life, but currently it's a prerequisite to this. So it's your choice. You don't want calculus in your life? All good. You can't do this. And that's just life in general, right? I don't have enough money to buy, a 20,000 square foot home in the middle of downtown Toronto. I just don't, right? Okay. And that's the honest answer. I can't buy that because I don't have enough money. And I think it's kind of the same thing, that you get to make choices throughout your life. And I just wish that people would ask why more often so that they understand the consequences in their choices rather than just being told you can't. Or you can't sucks. I don't know if anyone's ever told you, like, you can't do that or you'll never be able to do that. Right. And you go home and think, why the fuck not? Right.
It's
So,
funny, man. It's the people who say I can't are generally the ones who are not even in your inner circle,
right.
right? It's the people that are
Sure.
on the brink. You mentioned earlier, it's the people that are just creeping in the background. They're watching, they're paying attention, they're seeing your post, they're seeing
Yep.
you here, they're seeing you do that, this and that, and they're just secretly watching. In a way, probably just making all these assumptions about you without even a lick of true knowledge.
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, one thing that never stops in life, as you move through life, relationships come and go and whatever else. But the one thing that I've practiced a lot lately is I've learned to stop judging. When you're young, you judge a lot. And in a community, you judge. Right. And I've really worked hard to separate myself from people who create relationships based on judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So am I good enough to be a part of this circle? Do I, have enough? Do I, do I floss enough? Like whatever it is, right? It's just, what are you looking for to be part of your circle? For me, it's become more about just genuinely liking the people I'm around. And I don't care if they have, $5 in their pocket or 500,000 bucks in their pocket. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to be around genuine people. And that's something that, as I've gotten older, has really become kind of an important thing to me.
I love that. I'm not going to ask you one of my favorite questions that I love to ask, which is, as you've gotten older, what's become more important in your life? Because you just answered it. But what I do want to ask you is that you work in a very interesting industry. At least I find it interesting. I find it fascinating. I think the event space is so amazing. Being somebody who hosts events, workshops, dinners, experiences, man, there's something about a good event that just you remember forever, or something,
Absolutely.
that one relationship you made, that one speaker you saw, the one nugget of information you took away, the one thing that you saw on your table. What brought you into that industry?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think creatively, it was something that I realized early on I was good at. When I was young, and I found that I needed an outlet for all of this creative energy. I found it through entertaining and entertainment. I used to, when I was young, I would MC really large nightclubs in and around hip hop music. And so I got to meet, amazing people and confidence builders. And, one of the first people to ever have a really cool influence on me, actually two people, because they were a pair at the time, was Maestro Fresh Wes and Farley Flex. And, those people I had an opportunity to work with. And man, what positive people, and even to today, right? Wes is a guy that, you know, is incredibly engaging and friendly and just cool guys. And I think, you know, I learned about, you know, I could apply myself in a way that would gain me some attention, make me some money, and also that I was good at. And I can't tell you that after all of the things we've talked about the last few minutes, the one thing that was unbelievable is that I found something that I was good at, right? So young, I was good at sports, and I was good at, you know, I always was big into music and whatever else, but like, you know, those things are all things that kids generally find, right? So, you know, if you're not good at soccer, you're good at baseball, you're good at hockey, or, you know, you're good at whatever else. Like, I was a sports guy when I was young. I was good at sports. But this was something that was unique, right? That the other people around me couldn't say they were good at, right? And I think when I was young, it created a little bit of jealousy too. Like, you know, and I started to find my, like my sense of independence. And, you know, all of a sudden I was, and again, I'm going to age myself, you know, 20 some odd years, but, you know, I'd have colored hair sometimes just because I wanted to, and I could, and it was an expression for me. And, you know, before I had kids anyways, I had a tongue piercing and my ears were all
No
pierced.
way.
I don't know if you
Wow.
can see it, but it's there. Well, it's not there anymore, but it was there. And, you know, I was able to kind of like just find some self-expression and all of that. And man, that felt good. That was really good. And so, you know, when that kind of became a thing, like, okay, you know, that's a lifestyle you can't live for forever. And let's be honest, I was smart enough to accept the fact that I had done a lot in that area, but I wasn't going to be like a big nightclub promoter. I thought that was kind of sleazy. And I just didn't, you know, I didn't see myself as having a career in nightclubs. And so I was able to transition that and take the skills that I had learned and take the confidence that I had built and just move it to something, you know, a little bit more private, creating really cool experiences for, you know, companies and foundations, and feeling good about being able to raise money for charities and create those holy shit moments that you were saying before about events. You know, the place that I'm usually when our events start are right inside the main doors. And I know that, you know, they always talk about there are moments in your life that you remember, right? And as you flash back, and I like to think that I'm creating one of those moments, right? When someone comes into the room, and clearly I don't think it's one of those life-ending moments that someone, you know, circulates through their mind, but I do think that, you know, or at least I hope that through my work, I'm able to impact someone's emotion, even for that moment. And if I own that person for that moment, and, you know, in their mind, they're going, this is unreal, then I've done something for them in that moment that can't be duplicated and won't be replicated. Right. And that's cool. Right. For me, that's really like, that's the thing for me that really drives me to continue to innovate and continue to create. And that's what I love about events.
I love that, man. It's one of the first things that stood out when I met you and just through our last conversation was your love and passion for making people feel a certain way and
Yeah.
just capturing that one moment. And I often think about some of the dinners that I host, and, you know, I tell people I host dinners, and those who have been to a dinner, they know it's not a dinner, it's this experience, right? There's a before, there's a during, and there's an after, and every moment is very curated, it's very orchestrated, because I know what it's like to feel understood. I know what it's like to feel valued, but most importantly, I know when I walk into rooms where I don't feel those things, I never want to return to that room ever again.
No, you know, and for me, there's something about being that the puppet master of the mood or of the room where I can look at it and go, cool, if I did this in the middle of the event, how would someone feel about it? Right? Am I going to scare someone? Am I going to like impress them? Am I going to, what is it? You know, how do I do that? And, you know, the most interesting thing for me is we've done a lot of work where we'll just play with simple lighting, right? And all of a sudden, you know, every time, if you have 300 people in a room and you turn off the lights for a second, what's the reaction?
Ooh,
Right.
what's
Someone
going
goes,
on?
oh no, like the power's gone out, something. And the funny part is that I know that will happen every time. Right? It's the same shit every time, right? The lights go off and everyone goes, oh, and then I can put a spotlight on the stage and people feel calm again, like, oh, it's part of the show. I know I can do that anytime, right?
That's so cool.
We did an event once, or actually, well, we've done this a couple times with moods, but we did it once in particular where we started and we made people believe they were coming to an event. This was years and years ago, where it was very winter themed and really super interesting and really done up with lots of decor and entertainment. And, you came in, you almost could feel that it was cold in the room, even though it wasn't. And 30 minutes into the event, we actually flipped off the lights and created a storm sequence. So we had lightning and thunder sounds and rain and whatever else. And it lasted about 30 seconds, right? So people could kind of see there was flashing.
Yeah.
And when the lights came back up, the entertainment had changed, the decor had changed, the lighting had changed, and it was springtime.
That's cool.
And the whole mood of the room changed, right? And we did that again for summer and again for winter. And again, different entertainment, different decor to a certain degree, but we had pre-planned it so everything in the room was white. It would take light very well, so we could change that, right? Obviously, winters was whites, and spring was green, and summer was the oranges. But we, again, I get to take people through that story. We've done events before where we use the old Disney story Fantasia as an inspiration, because again, that's kind of driving people through a story. And that's what I love about it, right? I can predict reaction and then I can make people feel a certain way. And that's a really cool thing to be able to do.
It's powerful, man. I'm very fascinated by that industry. And I know that, speaking of industries, and earlier you said, this has been a tough year from a business perspective. And a lot of people listening to this are entrepreneurs, they are business owners, many of whom have taken a hit, have got punched in the face, rocked in the face this year by the pandemic. Just curious as to how you've been able to, or actually, I guess, firstly, like, what obstacles have you been facing, and what's been your approach, and how have you been able to combat that? Because truthfully, when the pandemic first hit, I thought my business was completely done. And for about 48 hours, man, I went into this mode of, I don't know if it was quite depression, but it was definitely in this mode of, oh my God, my business is screwed.
Yep.
So I just wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah. So first of all, Fifth Element's very lucky from the standpoint that we have had a good string of a good, number of years. And so I feel good about the idea that we'll be okay when it comes out of this. That being said, there is nobody that's been hit harder than we have. Not one industry, not one job, not one company. When it becomes illegal to do your work because you can't put people in a building, and then B, socially unacceptable to do your work, those are the two whammies that are barriers to doing business. And even with the announcement of stage 3, I mean, putting 50 people in a place is wonderful, but my clients are not 50-person clients.
Right.
And so what have we done? We chose not to pivot early on, meaning that we weren't going to claim that we were experts in online, because we're not. We did reach out to a number of charities that I'm very passionate about working with charity. And we decided early on that we were going to focus on strategy. We realized that the one thing that we could do better than other people could was navigate the waters and try and help figure out, okay, you can't do a live event, but what can you do? Or how do we raise money? Or let's pull some stunts, let's be creative. Because again, that's what we're known for. That's how we stand out. And, for me, the scariest thing was just not being able to be creative, right? It almost was like going back to my youth and someone saying, you can't do this. And so, full circle in our conversation, again, I still can't technically. But every day, we come to work and we try our best. And, we have a lot of conversations, some of which don't go anywhere, some of which, relegate us to some free work. And then some of which, clients are excited to start executing on. And as this goes on a little longer and the uncertainty of life continues, organizations are thirsty to find ways to have creative outlets as well. And that's what we're trying to facilitate. So we're still experience specialists. We're just changing the way our experiences happen. And we're using data, strategy, and metrics in order to be able to help organizations get to where they need to get to.
How do you deal with uncertainty?
I don't like it. It's interesting because I think I think naturally I'm not a planner, which is crazy, right? But again, I've always just been I've always found a way.
Are
Right?
you like a combination of type A and type B?
I'm like type C.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell because you've got all this crazy energy and you're very good at what you do. To me, that's like, oh my God, okay, you're clearly type A. And then the type B freedom and the flexibility, I'm like, yeah, I'm type A in certain situations and B in others.
It's funny, if it's not part of my routine, it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And so it's totally one spectrum or the other, right? Mm-hmm. Again, I have been fortunate enough to have people around me who have taught me that other ways can be successful too, and help me. But for me, I think, uncertainty is, sometimes I laugh at uncertainty because, life never promised me anything, right? The day I was born until the day I die is uncertain, right? Imagine for a second, and I've used this analogy before, but imagine for a second that you knew the actual day and time of your death, right? The ultimate uncertainty becomes certain. Imagine the impact that it would have on your life as a whole, right?
Man, that is so scary.
And would you change your mind if, heaven forbid, of course, but would you change your mind about things like getting married or having kids if you found out that, you go at 45, right? That certainty makes the rest of your life uncertain. So most people would say, of course I want to get married and have kids. Most, not everybody, but most, right? But that one certain thing makes the rest of your life uncertain. And so I think the way that I deal with uncertainty is I ground myself in things that are certain to me. I ground my things in people who are solid for me, and they're very few and far between. And then I allow myself to feel the uncertainty. And I think, fuck, that's life, man. It's not supposed to. No one, my industry is crying right now about money and this, and we can't work. And I'm like, look, retail went through this. All these other people went through this. Nobody gave me anything in life, and life doesn't owe me anything. So, I hope that life gives me long life and good health and some success. I hope that life gives my family and my kids and my wife, every bit of good fortune that it can possibly squeeze out. But for me personally, my journey is uncertain. My life is uncertain. Every day I wake up is uncertain. I don't know what's going to happen that day. And so I think in business, uncertainty needs to be treated just as in life, and you navigate your way through and you put one foot in front of the other and you just keep walking.
I think something that I'm sensing from you on this call and last call is just your perspective is so grounded.
I try. I think emotion really, really fucks with realism. I think that, you need to, I think people try not to compartmentalize things so much. And I think that's a mistake, because you allow yourself to become, to feel too much, and I don't think that everything in life has to be equated to an emotion, right? I think you go to therapy and they always say, well, how does that make you feel? Right? And how bad is it to just say, it just makes me feel pissed, right? Like I'm just pissed off about it. Mm-hmm. And, being pissed off or being mad or being upset, those are fleeting emotions, right? I'd rather look at something realistically and go, you know what? I don't have a feeling right now about that. You know, I, just like everyone else, have things go on in my life and my personal life and everything else. And, you know, I deal with them by putting them in an area that I feel comfortable for my life and saying, you know what? Yes, sometimes it's going to move from like not thinking about it to really pissed about it. Or sometimes it's going to move to from pissed to sad or to happy or whatever else. And that's okay. But realistically, you know, it's going to change consistently. And I think that, you know, that's how I look at most things in life. There are very few things to me in life that are unconditional. The love for my wife and my kids is unconditional, right? You know, my wife is a spectacular lady, right? And I'm going to force her to watch this. She's but realistically,
we'll timestamp exactly this second.
She actually embodies all of the things that I don't, right? So she is, you know, she is structured, and she is, you know, she is a rock, and she can handle so much more than I can. And she is one of the people that I've learned so much from when it comes to the structure, and when it comes to, you know, how to feel about things, and when it comes to responsibility, and all of those things that I really lacked being young. We got married young. I met her very young. And she's really been the driving force, honestly. And, you know, I tell everyone this. She was, you know, when we were young and engaged, she was in school to become an accountant, and I watched how hard she had to work. And then, you know, in her late 20s, she was working on Wall Street for a traded company, and, you know, excelling. And I think it was a prime example for me of what someone can do when they put their mind to it and use their given skills, right? So she is someone who was able to sit and say, I'm going to learn statistics and math. And whether she loves being an accountant or not, she is amazing at it. And it's because she was able to harness her given abilities. And I think, you know, the thing that I love about her is that she is all the pieces I'm not, but understands that I am doing my best with my abilities. And she has become the one person in life, obviously, who I hold myself accountable to. So I am always working to be as close to her level as I can be, because I don't match it on my best day. But I try, right? And she's kind of the real driving force that has taught me responsibility and dedication and passion and all of those things that go into trying to build a happier life.
Man, shout out to all the better halves out there.
Yeah. You know what? It's so unbelievable to think that, you know, especially in today's world with so much focus being on, you know, women's rights and minorities and all kinds of things, and religious minorities and visible minorities and everything else. You know, it's so unfortunate that people just can't see people. Right. And I think that, you know, the people in my life who have been most influential are female, with the exception of one person. But I think, you know, for me, it's, I don't care who those people are. I think it's important for everyone to bring their best to the table. Right. And if you're bringing your best to the table, it doesn't mean you're going to click with everyone. But, you know, I think I've learned so much, again, from my wife about just being a good person and understanding, you know, now that I have a daughter and sons, you know, I try to treat them all exactly the same. Right. Clearly, I love on my daughter a little more, and, you know, she's you know, she'll be the one that takes care of me when I get old, for sure. But, you know, I am so proud to be someone who, you know, can see everybody for just being, you know, human, I guess. And that's
Superhuman.
Yeah, superhuman. And I think that, you know, that's something that I found right away with you that, we both had in common, the idea that, you know, background and, you know, all of those things really didn't matter. We didn't talk about any of that stuff. We just had a, you know, human to human conversation about, you know, things that were important to us. And, I think that's something that's really cool.
I love that, man. I'd love to transition this into when I first reached out to you, when I first connected, you connected with me, then I connected with you. I don't really recall the minor details, but you said to me something that really stuck out to me. You said, hey man, like I'm an open book. I like to disrupt things. I like to speak up. I'm outspoken. Just FYI, that's who I am. And I said, oh my God, this is so refreshing. This is so refreshing and real. What is there from an industry standpoint, from a work standpoint, from just like a personal belief standpoint, where do you find yourself like disrupting the norm the most?
I think that I'm willing to say the things that people don't necessarily want to hear. In my industry, there is an incredible lack of code of ethics and code of conduct and standardization and our ability to be able to reach out to clients and consumers and customers and say, like, this is what you should expect from a professional agency that does live events or experiences or whatever else. That doesn't exist, right? And so instead, we all get grouped into like party planners, which fucking sucks. And so for me,
yeah, that's like going to like Party City down the road and picking up balloons.
Right, for sure. And so I think that, as I've gone through my career and I've gained some confidence, and look, we've got some notoriety and won a number of awards internationally and done all the cool things you want to do. I ran a 501c3 in our industry for 3 years, and I was the president of the International Live Event Association in Toronto. And so I've done a lot that have helped me gain confidence. But I've also, again, because I don't feel emotional about what I do, I can look at it and go, whether it impacts me positively or negatively, my industry needs some sort of conduct and ethics, and it needs some standardization, and it needs a watchdog, right? It needs someone like, the chartered accountants have theirs, and lawyers have theirs, and, everyone else, all professionals, doctors, whatever else. Every industry, in Canada, we have the Institute of Communication Agencies, which kind of helps to govern advertising and marketing and stuff. What do we have as a creative profession that is stopping people from just saying they are in the industry? Or if you planned your like mother's best friend's daughter's niece's baby shower, does that make you a planner? Right?
LinkedIn would say yes.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And in my industry, you can be like a cake baking, flower designing, limo driving florist if you want to be. And okay, because hey, why not? And so again, I think that for me, being outspoken it is the confidence to be able to say the things that people don't necessarily want to hear. And look, I do a lot of speaking engagements. I've had people yell at me on stage. I've had people throw things at me. Like I've had all sorts of things because they know that I'm about to fuck with their business. And while I feel bad because that's someone's livelihood, I want people to do things the right way so we can make more money. And sometimes in life, you have to take a small step back to take 10 steps forward, right? And if you take that small step back and you're able to look from a macro perspective at an industry rather than a micro perspective at your own self, I think that's when you can help benefit a lot of people. And I just seem more willing to do that than many in my industry. And that's what makes me a disruptor. And that's what makes me a trendsetter in my industry and, all of those things.
You just gave me inspiration to create a new question that I have never asked anyone before. And I love questions. Anyone who knows me knows I love a good question. And my new question that you've given me the inspiration for is, where do you think people in life should consider taking a step back to take 10 steps forward?
When they think that they've reached a pinnacle or they think they've reached success, back the fuck up. Because I'm telling you right now that there's 10 times the success out there for you if you're willing to put a little bit more into your industry or into your persona or whatever else. And I coach some people, and that's exactly what I say, because they're like, well, we have this department and this, and this. And I go, stop it. Take a step back. If you're doing X amount in revenue and this department's only worth 5%, close it and put your effort into something else, right? I think when you think you're there, you're really not. And, you know, people, the most successful people are lifelong learners. Now, that doesn't mean school. That means they learn, right? And they can learn in any way, from other people, from online, from, you know, reading books, from whatever, right? I clearly don't have the attention necessary to read a book. I listen to some occasionally. But I learn from articles. I learn from interviews. I learn from things like this. I listen to podcasts sometimes, but I'm always about learning. And if I know that, okay, I've learned this new bit of information, let me just take a quick step backwards and see if I've applied that already. Or if I take a step back and eliminate this small piece of my business, but apply this new bit of information, can I now take 5 steps forward, right? So when is the time to reorganize, take that small step back? And I know when I start looking at my business from a really micro perspective, I'm in trouble, because I want to be able to say, I can help this many people, or, you know, because what I do is as a creative outlet, I can help anybody. And so, you know, some people can't, obviously, but for me, when I start going really micro into my business, and, you know, I don't hear some of that noise outside, that's when I know I'm in trouble. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what's trending. I want to know different social media platforms. I want to know what's cool. I want to know what's interesting. I want to know what the kids are doing. I want to know it all. I want to know everything. I'm thirsty for knowledge. And as I gain more knowledge, I take that small step back and I go, does this apply to me? How can I apply this? How can this help me? Okay, it can, great. 5 steps this way. It can't. Okay, no harm, no foul. Let's just move on to the next piece of information. Small step backwards. What do I do with this piece of information? I take a lot of backward steps, and I'm okay with that, but it's helped me really navigate my way forward.
I love that so much. And do you have a exercise, a framework, or when you find yourself realizing, hey, it probably makes sense for me to just get out of the weeds for a minute, take a step back and really work on the business or on yourself? Do you have any sort of rituals or habits, tactics, exercises that are commonly used?
So I get in my head a lot, which can be dangerous. I think, you know, for me, I just tend to think, and sometimes, you know, to my detriment, overthink sometimes, but I just tend to think. And I think sometimes, you know, one of the things that I do, and I think it's a product of my youth, to be honest, is sometimes I try to determine if I'm going to be comfortable with a given decision. And, you know, I'm a firm believer that the best decisions make you uncomfortable. I also know myself to know that it is the one thing that you know, shaking my confidence at this point is not something that I love. And so, you know, sometimes those are the way that I try to deal with things. I determine, you know, I get in my head and I start thinking all of the scenarios. But as of, you know, a number of months ago, I actually, I wake up a little bit earlier in the morning now, and I spin, which not only has been good for my health, but it's been good for my head. And, you know, I don't think about things on there, which is good. Being someone with, you know, a little bit of hyperactivity and ADHD, my brain is constantly going. And generally I think it's an advantage until something like, you know, this happens and I need to actually look from a more macro perspective, and that scares the shit out of me. But turning off my brain sometimes helps with clarity. And so, you know, that's what I try to do. I try to find activities which help me turn off my brain. I watch, you know, embarrassingly enough, but sometimes I watch, like, you know, the housewives shows and stuff like that with my wife. And really for me, again, that's just about, you know, just sitting mindlessly and, you know, watching some of these people, you know, do foolish things at ages that are inappropriate, but nevertheless, you know, it just gives me an opportunity to turn it off and just enjoy some time. And that's how I deal with those things.
I love it, man. I've got 3 final questions to bring this episode to a close. And the first question, I've also never asked this question before. I just came up with it. You're just giving me all this creativity today. Where do you think somebody listening to this episode has the potential biggest win in their life that might be right in front of them, but they can't see it?
I think passion breeds success. If you want to be, I was always told at a young age, there are people who are smarter than me in life. There are people that are more talented than me in life. There are people who are born with more skill or more privilege, many people than me in life. But if I choose, there can be in the entire world nobody that works harder than I do. That is the one choice that I'm given in life. And I think that comes down to passion sometimes. And so I feel strongly about the idea that if you're going to go be, a sanitary engineer, which is not the most glamorous job, go be the best fucking sanitary engineer you can be. Give it your all. You want to go be a clown? And clowns freak the shit out of me. But if you want to go be a clown, go be the best clown you can be. Go be the most memorable clown, right? For me, the most memorable clown is the one from Billy Madison, right? Okay.
Love that movie.
Right. And so, I think if you're going to go be the best, right? An old wrestler, Ric Flair, used to say, in order to be the best, you got to beat the best. Woo. Right. And so yeah. I think that, that's what I believe in. That's what I believe in. Go follow your passion and fucking kill it. Just do it. I shitty term, but I always say balls to the wall, right? Just go hard, be passionate, be aggressive. If you think the guy that started Spotify, if he thought that was going to be, this is exciting, I'm going to build online stores. No, but he felt
Shopify.
Passionate, right? Yeah. He's like, he felt, clearly felt passionate, right? You watch a Gary Vaynerchuk and he's passionate, right? Doesn't mean he's always right. No. Has he not made a lot of mistakes? I'm sure he has, right? But his passion is what drives him. When you look at all these entrepreneurs, even Warren Buffett at his age, passionate about what he does, right? They wake up in the morning and eat and sleep and breathe what they do. That is what you need to be successful and to drive you. And so that's it.
I love it. The second question is, I know you said you're not a big books guy, but have there been any books that have stumbled across your life, or whether in the last couple of years, this year, that really landed for you?
I have never fully read a book cover to cover. But if anyone gets a chance, so I will buy some books and I'll kind of flip through them and look at the pictures. But the story of the founder of Second Cup, he wrote an autobiography, and what I really took away from it is that he was homeless and he was completely out of it. And his name is slipping my mind right now. It's you'll find it. And he found a way.
Frank O'Day.
Yeah. And he needed to find a way. And for anyone watching the US, Second Cup is like a Canadian secondary version of Starbucks.
When all you have is hope.
Yeah, that's it.
The one?
Yeah. And he, I won't go through the whole story, but his story, book aside, his story is one that I think people can relate to. And I think it's one that reminds me that just when you think things can't get worse, I have my health and my happiness and a roof over my head and, a family that loves me and vice versa. And that's what I really need to be grateful for. And, if my business doesn't come back in the next 4 or 5 months and, I got to scale back a little bit or live life accordingly, I better fucking do that with a smile on my face, because there's probably 4 to 5 billion people in the world who would trade places with me in a heartbeat.
Mm.
And, that still means that no matter what's happening, I wake up every morning in a more privileged position than probably 70 or 80% of the world. And what can I complain about?
My final question.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Tomorrow morning,
Yeah.
everyone in the world wakes up, every city, every country, every province, every state wakes up tomorrow morning, and they open up their bedroom window, and everybody is looking at the exact same billboard. And Aaron gets to write the message on the billboard for all of the world to see. What message would you share?
Mm. Wow. I think, honestly, there's two things that come to my head. One, I think it'd be really funny just to put up like a joke, like someone mooning, right? Because, everyone would wake up with a smile on their face. But I think, I think I'd write, wow. I think I'd probably urge people to prove it. I think that would be the term. I think I'd just write prove it, because I think that, again, people go through life doing all kinds of things, right? But when I talk about the way that I feel about, family and this and that, am I perfect in those areas? No. I'm sometimes short on patience. Sure. Do I have my own issues? Sure. But I think that, the one thing that everyone's doing in life is trying to prove it. Prove that you can be better. Prove that you can be smarter. Prove that you can be successful, right? And you do all these things in life so that at the end of life, right, I like to think that when life's going to be over, I can look back at it and say, I proved to everyone that I could be, a successful person, a good dad, a good husband, live a good life. I proved it. And, I think why else go through all of this nonsense if you're not trying to prove something? And so I think prove it would be a real good one.
You just gave me the episode title inspiration, which I'm going to call Proof You Can Do Anything. Aaron, where is the best place people can find you if they want to get in contact or check you out?
Yeah, man. Well, I hope, listen, I am always open to conversations. And I just want to tell you that this is proof that reaching out anytime is always a good idea. And kudos to you for, again, not feeling that fear or that emotion behind it, and really just, doing it. And so this is great proof that can be successful. You can certainly find me on LinkedIn. If you're going to post this anywhere, you have my LinkedIn contact, so please do that. But you can find me at Aaron Kaufman. I also I do some business and coaching on the side for creative professionals. That's at aaronkaufman.net. And if you want to find a little bit more about me in terms of pictures, you can clearly find me on Instagram or Twitter. Twitter would be at AK5th, 5th. Instagram is Aaron Kaufman, CSEP. And alternately, if you want to see a little bit more of the work that Fifth Element Group does, you can find us on Instagram as well at Fifth, FIFTH, Element GRP. And that's a good way to see some of our more recent work, which is now clearly almost 6 months old, but hopefully we'll get back to it soon.
Well, my friend, this has been an incredible conversation. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for just being so open, so kind, and just a rock star.
Yeah, man, listen, I appreciate it. I appreciate what you're doing. And, what I love about it is that you're bringing humans or superhumans together to have a conversation that's more than just predictions, potential outcomes, and, you know, you're willing to get down to tough things. And again, you know, for the second time, this has been like free therapy for me. And so I feel good, and I feel calm. And usually I'm playing with this thing, just as a side note, which is a little ADHD tool my staff bought me. But I really haven't been so fidgety, and that means that, you know, it's been a comfortable hour, and I really appreciate it.
Awesome, man.